Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hidden Knowledge. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. And of course, share the content if you like it. We're going to be talking about the second half of Intro to Chapter 4. We're talking about the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Just a quick recap of what we talked about last video was our expectations versus what we read about business culture. And I was told later by some people who watched the video that I seem a little bit anti-Apple, but truth is I'm an Apple user. We're both Apple users. We talked about our understanding of ourselves and how we relate to the book and how it's filtered through what we have at the moment and what we're working with. We talked about Jahar's Window. Tune into Jahar's Window. Some very interesting stuff to read. The reason why I'm putting it out there is because most of the people I know don't know what Jahar's Windows is, but I think it's something cool to tap into. We talked about our opinions of innovation and how we relate to it as individuals, how we relate to information and based off who's giving it and our understanding of it and whether we think it's credible or not. Jonathan gave a very personal experience that he has had with Chapter 2, which is Sticks and Carrots. Don't forget to tune into last videos. But with that being said, we're going to talk about Intro to Chapter 4. Let's get into it.
What did you gather from that?
At one point in the book, I highlighted, right? And I wrote, manipulation works, but only for a short time.
It works.
It works, but only for
So
a short
I found
time.
that quote, and it's funny because it's written by Abraham Lincoln, supposedly. I wasn't there, so I when I quote things, it supposedly was written by that guy. You can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. And it's the perfect example of trying to manipulate people. Eventually, people will give up on you.
That is so true. So the question that I wrote for manipulation versus inspiration was, what is the trade-off? Like, what is the price you pay for trying to... No, let me reframe that question. Do you have a specific price in mind that you are willing to pay when you decide to manipulate people? And the reason why I asked the question in that frame of mind is I'm a firm believer that to get something, you have to pay for it first, right? So you have to give to get. So the price, like, what are you willing to pay in the first place? Like, what made you think it's okay to manipulate? So you have to set the price. For instance, when I write down a goal, right?
Yeah.
I.e. today, I was like, I need to finish all the chapters and stuff, right? I was like, the price that I am willing and going to pay is not doing my homework today, because I broke down my homework in sections and I blocked this day out just for this moment and to get everything done for the book, come up with the questions that I had to ask. I was like, the price I'm willing to pay is that. And then I said it, but then I also have something else that says, if I'm paying more than the price that I'm willing to pay, then it's not worth it. I always go in there with the price I'm willing to pay. So the question that I was asking is, the companies that manipulate people, did they set the price prior to trying to manipulate these people?
So I think it's a very big question. I think it's an interesting question. I like the amount of thought that went into it. Me looking at it, I would think that a company isn't interested in the price they're willing to pay. They're interested in what they're willing to make because they always believe that they're in a position to apologize. And what we've learned over the last, I would say 10 to 20 years, and this is just my little tidbit. I don't know like if it's entirely true. I just know that I've heard it and I've kind of seen it when I've studied, like I watch Shark Tank so I can figure out how business proposals and how they look at stuff and how they do valuations, and I'm a type of kinesthetic like that, so I watch and learn and do. It's kind of one of those things where even if they make a mistake and it's on purpose, bad advertisement is still good advertisement because people are talking about you.
Isn't that Trump's philosophy?
I mean, it's kind of like when you look at what's that mess called? Tabloids and stuff like that. Oh, Jennifer Aniston and and Brad Pitt and they did this and they're doing that, and then next thing you know, they got a new movie coming out.
That's true.
Like right before, because everybody's talking about them. So actually, when a new movie comes out, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm so curious as to. I wonder if that romantic relationship is real." And it's kind of like most of the TV shows that you watch always dangle the manipulative love that's not supposed to be in front of your face, like a carrot.
And then like you just stick.
But it's the fact. You look at it, it was like, I used to watch X-Files.
X-Files.
Yes. Gillian Anderson, and I can't remember the actor's name, but it was Scully and Mulder, and there was always this possibility of them getting together. And I used to, I was in high school and I was just like this. Because I just wanted them to hook up. Like I was just like, but they really love each other. Like it's there. And maybe it was just a romantic in me, or maybe it was stupid of me. But it was definitely a manipulation on their part to get me watching the show. But it changed me because now when I watch a show, I'm only looking for the carrot. And once I find the carrot, I want to know how effective the carrot is. What is making me watch the show? And my wife was like, why are you so intentfully? I'll pause it and be like, hey, did you see that? It's the music, the way that they're playing the music. This is supposed to be a sad scene with the music happy. It's emotionally causing turmoil inside of you to get you to this point because it's by design. What was that? That's crazy. Carrots and sticks is funny, but I feel it. That's my answer.
So here in the same carrot and sticks chapter, right? The companies, right? When they have an issue, they always seem to call in an expert to come in and fix it. Like if you were reading in the page, but the expert says the company never seem to have the money and the time to fix the foundational problems, only quick fix, but always seem to have the time and the money to invite her over again.
Why do you think that is though? Like what is the driving force behind, so like I feel like we just pointed out like problems, right? So what is the driving force behind them causing the problem in the first place, being manipulative to turn around and not be able to take care of the problem the way that they thought they would be able to? Because to me, that signifies that there's absolutely one problem here and they're trying to solve it really fast and they don't care about which means they do it.
So the driving force would be, there's something my grandma used to say, that people do things for the show of it, not to actually do it. And like,
it's the opposite of integrity.
Yeah.
Or having integrity.
So she would say basically it's for show, it's not real. In less words in Jamaican, like Patos language, it's a little bit longer. But if I seem like it's just like toxic. You know you're toxic, but you don't really want to fix it. And you know you don't have anything better to do. So every time you hit rock bottom, like in the instance, the way I can help people to understand is that toxic person that you were in a relationship with, where every time things seems to be going awry, they seem to turn to outside for help. But as soon as you're good again, it's the same bullshit.
I feel you. It seems like it's the second things go bad or they get caught, they become the perfect person. I'm so sorry. I'm this, I'm that. But why? So now we're looking at, like, we're doing a cost analysis, like, and we're literally trying to figure, like, I'm a firm believer in root cause analysis. What if you're toxic and it's because you're trying to fix the problem in the first place? So you look at the company, most businesses start off toxic to themselves. Broke, overextended. They have to go in, like starting a nonprofit. I look at it and I was like, man, like, how do I start this thing perfectly as to not cause myself a bunch of problems? It took a lot of sitting down and reading and looking at what people did wrong so that I can understand what to do right. I've reached out to mentors, haven't really heard anything from them. Thank you, other nonprofits who don't want to help me. But I sat down and looked at it and I was like, okay, so it cost me this much money to start an LLC. I started the LLC, got it incorporated, did everything I was supposed to do. And I was like, okay, now I can focus on making it become a nonprofit. And then in making it become a nonprofit, I need to understand what it's going to cost me to do it and then what I'm going to get back. And I kind of structured it in a way that I never got out of my comfort zone because I've already been through my discomfort in life. Like, I don't really have a worry. This is just like my end state, right? But what about a company that starts off and they got a loan for $1 million? That's a loan. So Samsung was ripping people off with the full intent of just getting from under their initial debt. Because they started off toxic, their why was simple. We need to make as much money as possible. We don't care how we get it, but then we can make up for it later because our intent on the backside is good.
But then you could think of companies like Apple and all these other companies. I think what really did differentiate the companies was the compromise in value. At some point, we'll get to a part in the book where we'll talk about how every phone developer come and the service providers will dictate what features the phone has, right? And the only game changer that Apple really brought to the scene was that it says, hey, we'll tell you what features we'll have on our phone. And if memory serves me correctly, AT&T was the only person who accepted, and so they got exclusive deals, right?
Yeah.
But without the compromise in their integrity and the value of their why, right?
Yeah.
People wouldn't be able to reach out and turn themselves from a good company to a commodities. And it's interesting. The way he redefined commodities for me here was mind blowing. He said, I'm gonna have to flip through to find exactly what he was saying, but he said something along the line of any company that neglects their why and serves to undercut people based on their science, is what he said, is now traded as a commodity. And for me, right there, that was a game changer because I'm like, instead of looking at some of these companies that are lowering costs, hey, buy one, get one free and stuff like that, or buy one, get your next one 25% off, 75% off. You know, if I'm going to buy a laptop from you to get the next one 25% off and it's within a year, you're basically trying to take my money and cheat me out of my next deal, right?
Yeah.
Instead of honoring that deal. But then it's their margins. They're trying to keep themselves profitable.
Yeah.
But then you're a watcher of Shark Tank like I am.
Yeah.
In Shark Tank, what I've noticed, the business that tends to succeed a lot, they had a low startup cost. So they didn't compromise themselves right off the bat because they wanted to hit it big. They started small and grow. Apple started as just a computer.
Yeah.
A computer, right? And then Apple moved into the iPod, and then the iPad into cell phones, iPhones. And Apple don't offer anything but iPhones. And they've grown so much. It's interesting. They didn't waste all their money and their resources trying to go after every small little opportunity. They slowly integrate themselves and their values.
And I completely wholeheartedly agree with everything that you just said and is over here taking notes, but it comes back to maybe the possibility is that starting off in a deficit. Hey, so let's look at this as like relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
I dated someone before who months into the relationship, she was like, when I was having a conversation like, you used to be like this, she said, well, that was my representative. And I was like, hey, to me, this did not exist because I was the way I was. And I decided that I wasn't willing to compromise certain things about who I was. I wasn't going to go into a relationship pretending that I like things that I didn't like or this, that, and the third, because it always bites you. But then I realized when people will go in a relationship and act like they're the nicest, sweetest, kindest, blah, 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 blah. Like they're just all these things. And then you're like, yo, like, you're not a good person.
This is
like, but that was my representative. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, how does that benefit me in any way? Like, but that's a toxic thing to go in a deficit. But before you catch on to that, there's a series of like events that are kind of exactly described as this manipulative thing. Like, I'm going to act crazy and then I'm going to come in and try to make it real nice. Well, here's some cupcakes. Let me rub your back. I know I was just upset earlier. I don't normally get like that. I just care about you so much. And this chapter reminds me of just being taken advantage of. So in a way, I kind of understand like this brought into the perspective that he's talking about business only because it lacks emotion to a certain point that you can see the clarity of it. Like a business is willing to screw you over. They'll pay for it in the end and risk losing their reputation, but they've already made the money.
But you know what's interesting? So on a balance sheet, they have a part on the balance sheet that values your brand. Right?
Intellectual property, you mean? Or is it said differently?
No, it's not. Let me pull it up.
And so while you're doing that, do you believe that there's a way to get around the nature, what we're calling the nature of this as he describes it?
The nature of business?
Not the nature of business, but the nature of, like he said, it wasn't about the laundry being clean. It's about the thought of it being clean, the smell of it. People were liking the smell.
Oh, yeah.
But me personally, I like the smell, but I want it clean. Like,
I thought about that for a second. I was like, is that why all of our new detergents all like smell?
they smell ultra strong, and it gives me a headache. I don't really like stuff that smells really strong. But at the end of it, I want it clean. I don't want to think it's clean. I want to know it's clean. And it's kind of like one of those things where you have different products. Like people think, oh, you just clean it with bleach, and people have gotten used to the bleach smell, and that means clean. But I literally want it clean. Like, I know what dirty looks like, and I want to know what clean looks like. The smell of it, I guess I wouldn't want it to smell like doo-doo. So I guess that makes sense in a way. But I think that, the real question is, do you think there's a way to beat the science of why? Like, do you believe that you are aware of why you do the things that you do? Like, do you think that someone can become self-aware enough to know why they're taking the action that they're taking?
Yes. I definitely think that's a hard yes, because I think like the biggest thing that differentiates us from like everyday animals or wildlife is our ability to perceive ourselves in a way where we can recollect with a fair amount of accuracy the past, right? And the reason why I said that is because, like, if we weren't able to perceive it, if you have noticed, other animals, their memory is very short, right? But they're not able to look back at the past the way we do, right? We're able to differentiate, pick up on different things, and reflect, and through the past come back as a better person in a sense, a better person,
Mm-hmm.
and thus able to grow from our past experiences. And also, because of that ability, we have the ability to look into a future that has not yet happened, right? Which is one of the biggest differentiating factors, because an animal is not looking like, hey, what am I gonna do to make my life better? It's like, where do I get my next meal? So after this meal is done, okay, I'm gonna sleep. Where do I get my next meal? And then that's what I'm gonna go and do. So it's not like, hey, I can visualize myself with these grand goals or these small goals or however it is, and then you go strive to get it. So for an animal, it's just like, where do I get my next meal? And that's the end of the thought right there.
And so I have a question, right? You said three things that stuck out to me. The ability to perceive ourselves. Animals don't possess the ability to perceive themselves. Get the past the way that we do, and then the anticipation or the thought of the future. How do you know animals other than us don't do that?
That's a great question.
I think, and the reason I say that, is because I've heard that before. Animals they're not introspective. What do they have to be introspective about?
The next meal, I guess.
But I mean, the reality, when have you seen a dog not be able to solve a problem that was in its way?
The reason why I believe that to be true, because if it were so, right, there would have been another competing species with us as Homo sapiens. That ability would allow them to, with a fair amount of certainty, to perceive our species as a threat to their survival. Because then we'd be competing against each other, and it would just be humans against humans, differentiating based on regional differences and religious preferences.
But the nature of relationships says that symbiosis works better than parasite, theoretically, right?
Theoretically.
Like, so when you think about it, why would the dog perceive us as a threat when we're feeding it? That's kind of a way of manipulating the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And then why would, like, a lion at a zoo does perceive people as a threat, which is why they don't go in there without guns and 5 other people to pull the lion off of somebody. You know what I mean? Like, people run around the plains of Africa and they don't necessarily tangle with lions on a regular basis. I have seen where like 5 Africans lined up and walked near a pride, and the pride was smart enough to move away. But as far as like looking at things and learning and remembering the past, I think they're very good at it. I think lions are very good hunters, and the only way you can become a good hunter is if you remember your failed attempts at hunting.
Or could it be just failed attempt at hunting, or could it just be natural selection at its best? So natural selection, right, is outside of our control, but one thing that us as humans does very well is, because we can recollect, we alter our fate, or so to speak, in a way where we have people who are born with certain genetics, right? Genetic defects that they would have just died if it was back in the past, because they don't have any way of treating it, right? Versus today we have.
So you're talking about the development of science.
The development of science was, I think, was a differentiating, a really strong motivator for us as human beings to differentiate ourselves from everyday mammals. And the reason why I say that is because, right, yes, the lion is a good hunter, but at the end of the day, that lion, right, even though even when they do perceive us as a threat, they can't eliminate us effectively because of the fact that we're able to evolve a lot faster. That we're able to outsmart them by thinking which thus translate into new technologies or new stuff that we used to kill in a sense. I don't know if that kind of makes.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I don't outright agree with it, because I think that because we've avoided them, we've just outnumbered them. And since they're worried about nature, they don't kill what they don't need.
Yes,
like for the most part, they're not trying to consume everything. They're just trying to live, and they're not taking advantage of the circumstance. And like, it kind of comes to like what you're describing is, you're saying that it's too dumb because it's at peace with what it is.
I wouldn't say it's dumb, but I would say a driving factor. But then you just point out another factor that further isolates the everyday mammal from we. We are driven by a few primal emotions that I would say other species feel, but definitely don't act on. We're very greedy as human beings.
Oh, absolutely.
And to get back to what I was looking for, so it's under intangible properties, and it's branding. So
branding, okay. Oh, it's branding. So we're learning about all kinds of advertising while discussing this book and the ideas of how we're relating to the information. So as of saying that, right, when you said that it's one of those things where they don't have the ability to perceive themselves. They don't have the ability to look at the past, and they don't anticipate the future. They're just kind of, I'm going to call it peace, right? Because I think that's some peaceful stuff. I think that's what we're all trying to get to, where I can just wake up and be with my family and not worry about it, and go out and eat some nuts and grains and whatever the hell I'm going to eat, and then go back and do my business. But as we went further in the book, I remember it was saying that it's not really the food that's killing us. And this is in chapter 4, I think.
Stress.
And he said it's the stress. The stress of constantly being in this fast pace, trying to figure out why, trying to do this thing, continuously grinding. I don't know if that makes us, and not to harp on this subject, right? But I don't know if that makes us smarter than the donkey who's chasing the carrot and catching the stick, or if we are always the donkey and the carrot and we're not evolving past that state. Because if you think about it, we're always like, you watch movies, right? Clark Kent starts off in a small town, goes into big city. Big city's got all the problems. Small town is this peaceful, nice place where he had a couple of bad experiences, but overall his life was great. And then you got the Arrow, who started off in a city, but when he gets stranded on some island, he learns how to become a superhero and all these things when he was by himself, and he found himself. So Clark Kent, as Superman, started off knowing who he was with his family, and he goes back when he needs to reunite with it. And then the Arrow, whatever that guy's name is, he starts off in the big city disconnected from himself, gets isolated, learns who he is, and then comes back And both of them are just doing this interchange of becoming one with themselves and not with everything else, and knowing why they're doing things. Whenever Clark needs to know why, he goes back to Smallville. Whenever whatever that guy's name, the Arrow is, wants to know why, he isolates himself from everyone. And it's this thing where when you look at this and it's like, hey, why am I doing this? I think that comes into play when you decide that the dog isn't smart because he's living off of you. The dog doesn't think about the future because he's living off of you.
But that's interesting, right? Because like while the argument that I put forward, I like to challenge some of the stuff that I think.
Yeah.
Does the dog does provide actually in the house, not in the monetary value that we come to give worth to, but the dog provides
comfort, security,
and love, like and these things. Also, the dog may provide in your case indirectly to you by providing to your children and your wife, right? Mm-hmm. Which is indirectly pointed back at you. So you do benefit from the currency of the dog.
Yeah.
From the work of the dog. And to look at it that way, right? But then when I look at it that way, I'm like, the dog does provide. He's thinking about his future, his survival, right? You are his means of survival. And he is taking care of that means, right? So it's like in Rich Dad Poor Dad, they said minding your business. Mm-hmm. In the dog's sense, he is minding it. He or she is minding their business, right? And they're tending to their business and making sure it's prosperous. Because when I came to America, one of the things that struck me was how close humans were with animals here. Like the dog is very close with the family. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? And then as I come to understand it, right? The dog is taking care of his assets, and his assets are providing for him. I've never seen a man
keep a dog
hungry, right? I've never seen a man keep a dog hungry. I've seen dogs get treated better than people in America.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting to me. It blew my mind the first time I saw it. But
it's real. I've seen it.
It happens.
I think it's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
But to each their own. Whatever you love, you love. So with that, I have a piece of advice. Chapter 1 through 4. I'm going to sum up what I got from it, right? Okay. And what I got from it is when you go to work, when you're interacting in your relationships, when you're doing anything, you should do your best at what you are supposed to be doing. And for that, what I mean by that is like, so be the best husband you can be to your wife. You know what I'm saying? And then be the best coworker that you can be by doing what your part is. So let's say like the Army, there's a structure starting off from fuzzy private all the way to command sergeant major, starting off from second lieutenant all the way to 4-star general or 5-star general, depending if you get generals of the Army, and then starting off at WO1 to CW5, right? If you go to work as a private and you're trying to be an E5, but you don't even know how to be a private, that's not going to benefit anybody.
No.
So the reason why you want to be a good private, like the reason why, starting with why, is because that is the first building block to becoming the sergeant.
That's true. And
you can't function outside of that capacity effectively without doing that. So like my why, like, oh, Chief, why are you so good at your job? I'm not the best at my job. I'm good at it. I'll give it that. I'm pretty doggone good. The reason why is because I'm doing my job. I'm not doing yours.
That's true.
So why wouldn't I be good at what I'm doing if I practiced it, if I did it consistently? Now that I'm doing that consistently, I can also reach out and be like, hey, now I want to know parts of your job. Hey, explain to me what you do. Because that's it. And like one of the rules that we had for the book club was come prepared to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can do that is by doing, like reading the material. But why?
So you can do your job.
So you can do your job.
You can do your job.
So you can just do your job.
For me, 1 through 4, basically, nailed it in the head with a couple of phrases that I thought was interesting, and they use it in the book. It's the differentiating value proposition. So it's not what you offer, but it's why you offer it and how you stay with that why consistently or inconsistently that makes or break the culture of your life and your business. And then the way it's put, right? So by your differentiating value, right? Like if you just switch it, what is your differentiating cause or belief, right? That you're proposing to other people. So for me, chapter 1 through 4 was, hey, destroying what you think you know and start working with what you know and build from there, right? Don't look to manipulate people, because in the short end, you think you might be the one holding the carrot and the stick now, but the roles will be reversed because karma is as sure as the 4 seasons. And when you move forward with a purpose and a belief in mind, because your tribe or your niche will find you and you will be able to provide maximum value if you stay true to your beliefs and your goals without compromise. So that's basically what I got from 1 to 4.
I challenge you to think about that more. And as we read the next 4 chapters, I want you to like try to process this, right? Can you grow if you're unwilling to compromise your beliefs? If you've already, I looked up the word premise is why I picked up my phone, because a premise is inferred. Mm-hmm. It's inferred based on your beliefs. If your beliefs can't grow, can the information that you're receiving change? Or will you always stay the same? I think we should all take a moment to try to investigate that. And then I also want us to ponder, I think a good question for next time is, can you find your why without going through the highs and lows of experience? And me and my wife have this conversation all the time because we've, as we've grown through life, we've dated and, been in and out of relationships and stuff like that, as I'm sure you have and other people have. But did you need all of your bad relationships to be a good person? Like, did you need all of those bad experiences in order to know why you wanted what you wanted?
I've got an answer for that one. I don't think so. And it's, for me, it's fairly simple, right? So I'm a firm believer that what you put out in the universe is what you attract, right? So at some point you must have been what you were attracting. And until you had learned how to change the tune or the frequency at which you were vibrating, you kept attracting the same thing. There are people in this world that keeps dating the same people over and over again, just in different shape or forms or sizes.
Yeah, I challenge that with, that sounds very self-fulfilling.
It is.
It's kind of what I'm saying is not self-fulfilling like in that way. It's self-fulfilling in the reality that other people also have a perception. People can see that you're good and trick you into thinking that they're good and then getting something from you. So it's not necessarily always your frequency, it's your ability to discern someone else's. So, but you don't, just because I'm good doesn't mean I'm only going to attract good. And just because you're bad doesn't mean you're only going to attract bad.
That's true. So 1 through 4, I believe it's in chapter 4 when they were talking about Apple, like cult-like following.
Yes, it was.
And I am going to use that to challenge the premise that you just to challenge the statement that you just posed. They said that Apple followers knows just what doesn't sit right. Your gut feeling, right? That gut feeling. You always, like, if we listen to ourselves, majority of the time we wouldn't go wrong. Have you ever done something where you're like, shit, I should have just listen to my first instinct instead of trying to push it down.
Yeah.
And it's that small voice in your mind that if you just sit to ponder and try to figure out why this was my initial reaction,
Yeah.
you would have seen the whole picture.
Absolutely. I can't argue that. With that being said,
Thank you for coming out and having this conversation with us. And we hope that you have learned as much as we have learned from each other and grow with us as we grow.
I'm supposed to say all this, like click the like button and subscribe and all that kind of stuff.